Hello and welcome back to Read Becca, or welcome if you're new. I got a very kind shout out from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and that seems to have driven a few new folks over here, so thank you very much for the shout out. And if you're new, give me a comment down below, let me know. I love to see new faces. So yeah, jumping into what I read this week, it was a very eclectic reading week for sure. So I finished two things and they're kind of polar opposites. So the first one was a very short ebook, I think it was only about 80 pages, and that was Division Bells by Iona, Datt, Sharma. And it's so white you're not going to be able to actually see that. There you go, that's the cover. So this is a romance novella, and not only is it a romance, but it's a contemporary male-male romance with a load of bureaucracy. I did not know entirely what I was getting into. Division bells apparently are more of a thing in the UK and not the US. So this is UK based in the House of Lords. We're following these lawyers who I kind of would think of as legal aides. They're there to pretty much feed information to the minister or lord, whoever is speaking about a bill that they're presenting, and so they're there to make sure he has the information to answer questions. And they have this newbie to the group, Jules, who he's kind of there as a result of nepotism, so nobody takes him seriously, and he is there as a special advisor, so he's kind of in a critical role of the group. And meanwhile we have the grumpy character, Ari, who works really hard and takes his job super seriously and does not like Jules at all. So it's not quite a grumpy sunshine romance, but the two do certainly soften on each other. The grumpiness fades away a little bit when Ari has kind of a bit of a breakdown, a burnout, full on, because they kind of screw something up. So they're having to scramble to gather information after this screw up, and the group is getting together and becoming very close, including Jules. So during this burnout, of course, they connect, they form a relationship. It's very adorable. So there is a bit of like suspending reality for me in reading romance, specifically in this one, because I'm very against coworker romance. Like, be professional with your coworkers, please. That involves not getting into a romantic relationship. And specifically here, there is a moment where, for dramatic effect, obviously, one of the characters surprises the other with a kiss. Don't do that in any context, ever, period. But especially don't do that with someone you work with. Like, not okay. It's cute and happy in the book, of course, because it works out, but just not in reality. Please don't do that. So overall, I liked it. It's probably not going to be super memorable. I did pick this one up because Iona, Datt, Sharma wrote my favorite short story in Choreo Magazine Volume 1, which is a speculative fiction mag about stories from diaspora and immigrant voices, and I really, really enjoyed that story. This does not have any speculative elements to it. It's purely contemporary. So it was a very different thing, but I did really enjoy it. So that's what I read in ebook this week. In print book, I finished up my chunky nonfiction read, The Gilded Page by Mary Wellsley, and I enjoyed this a lot. I really enjoyed this. I have to preface saying that though with, you have to be a nerd to enjoy this. This is not anything that like builds toward a narrative. It doesn't start from a point of even like introducing you to here's what illustrated, not illustrated, I said illustrated last time as well, illuminated manuscripts are. So this is nonfiction all about medieval, middle-aged manuscripts, specifically illuminated texts, and the people who wrote them, who commissioned them, scribes, and why people might have wanted those, the way they're holy relics. But it doesn't, as I said, build on itself toward anything. So I don't feel like I will remember a ton of detail from this, because it was just so not linear. It's really intriguing and interesting in terms of the information I did take away from it, because you're basically just getting a bunch of random facts on a topic. So say there's a chapter about scribes, so you kind of get introduced to what is a scribe, kind of what do scribes do, not at an intro level. Like, you have to have some knowledge about generally like the role of the church and specific texts. Then you may get, here are some examples of scribes referenced in manuscripts. Like, here's some quotes. Here are some specific scribes that were important or memorable for some reason. So it's just jumping from topic to topic and really exploring those topics in a bunch of different anecdotes. This also really spends a lot of time just parsing texts. So you're getting things in German, French, Italian, I think, Old English, Middle English, Latin, and in doing that, it's so interesting because she breaks down the text itself, a literal translation of the text, and then a more like modern, here's what that really means for you, a kind of deal. So certain words don't translate exactly to, you know, what we would use right now. So she does that sort of translation for you. So there's a lot of parsing that. There's a lot of references to kind of canon works that I think, you know, most of BookTube probably knows. Like, you probably have heard maybe somebody reference Le Morte d'Arthur. This does not introduce those works. So it's not for an intro level person who's just coming in. Like, you kind of need to know who Mallory is or Chaucer and have some idea of the work. So this was a very nerdy work. I would say the one thing that was really, really stand out for me on this is something that really tied in with my earlier reading of Wake, the hidden history of women-led slave revolts earlier this year, in that she specifically made an effort to include women in each of the sections here. And why that's important is that there's not a whole lot of documentation. So there's a lot of reading between the lines. The instances where there are women present either have to be inferred or they're there because the woman specifically made herself known. So there's one example of Marie de France, and we know who she was just by her name because she inserted herself into the text. She specifically said, "I'm Marie de France." But we don't know anything about her at all because nobody thought that was of significance, even though, you know, women were a rarity in writing. They were typically illiterate. And so people were not considering that significant, even though it was exceptional enough to document. So there's a lot of reading between the lines to figure out the documentation. There's also this whole aside about the anchorite movement, or anchorites and anchoresses, who were people that shut themselves up inside of a building, a cell, and lived their entire life in there as like a religious holy thing. So they were a professional recluse, and many women did that. And I think in here it cited the fact that there were 3 times as many women anchoresses as there were anchorites in the 13th century, which is wild, but this was a way out for them. It was sort of seen as the way of avoiding forced marriage and birthing children. So that was an option, and they could be respected in society that way rather than kind of downcast or like the spinster role. So there was a lot of interesting stuff there. I did just absolutely love the writing. This is very bookish. So from the intro, I just want you to get a sense of the actual writing. To sit in the silence of a special collection's reading room and turn the pages of a medieval manuscript is to have tangible, smellable, visual encounters with the past. Parchment manuscripts have a particular scent that is hard to describe, acrid with undertones suggesting an organic origin. They can feel stiff and buckled, soft and faintly like suede, or so finely worked as to be tracing paper thin. Up close, ripples and imperfections become visible on a page of parchment. The traces of hair follicles, little repaired holes, and places with discoloration, but the colored inks and paints remain iridescent, having often been kept safely away from the light damage for centuries. A medieval manuscript is not only a text, but also a collection of human stories. So I think this is coming from a place of passion, and that's why it jumps around so much. It feels very much like talking to someone who really is excited and an expert on their field. So I just enjoyed that so very much. It's really, truly wonderful. I think on the feminist element of this, she has to say, these manuscripts offer a corrective to the popular perception that medieval manuscripts were all written by monks. Our imagination of the past is delineated by patriarchalism infused with prejudice. If we were wrong in imagining that all scribes were men, what else might we be wrong about? The past is, as ever, richer and more intriguing than we imagine. And I think that ties right in with that work I was mentioning, Wake, the hidden history of women-led slave revolts, where history as we see it is changing because of our lens, and there is so much more to find out. So I think contextualizing history through this was really, really great, and seeing her bring to light kind of these unfocused topics and perspectives about women scribes was very important, but as well seeing the other stuff, all of the other examples through a new lens was so great. So I really, really enjoyed this. So that's what I finished this week on my ongoing pile. My massive stack. We still have the same stuff, really. So I'm halfway through Vita Nostra. I'm really enjoying it. It's much more mundane than I expected. I did not know what to expect. I thought there was going to be a lot more magic, and there's not very much so far at the halfway point. Palimpsest. I'm still ongoing, still really enjoying this. It's beautifully written, kind of weird, magical realism-y, and Pillars of the Earth. So I lost my audiobook of this, so I'm back to just reading in print for a little while. It's good, but heartbreaking. I will say that for now. So I'm making good progress on that one. I also started or got the audiobook of Shah and the Tree of Wishes, which is the third Shah book. It's a middle grade series from the Rick Riordan Presents line, written by Roshani Chokshi. And I had forgotten that I hated the audiobook narrator. I listened to the first one a long time ago and had to give it up and read it in print. And so I'm trudging through, but I'm trying to do more audio because I have been going back to the gym, and so that means more audio or ebook time, and so I'm trying to lean into that and spend my time there, either audiobooking or ebooking. So yeah, I'm gonna try to stick with it. It so far hasn't graded on me as much as the first one did, but it's not great. I then also started an ebook that I'll save for next week. It's gonna be an odd one. So that's everything in terms of bookish stuff. Very rapidly. My weather here has been insane, so I have no idea if you can tell my hair is alive, but the humidity is awful. We're getting a kind of break between the storm. I have some footage to share in my week clips that we had massive storms earlier this week. We had massive rain and thunder this morning, and it's looking like a week of that upcoming. So not too much interesting stuff to come, I don't think. But what is very interesting from my week is that Rue figured out the cat wheel. I have no idea what happened, but he went from completely timid about it, like afraid to get on it, like he was barely getting on and maybe taking a couple steps, to like just getting on unprompted, and now like he's getting on it frequently throughout the day. So very exciting. I'm so happy that the cat wheel has worked out. So I'll include some of his progression in the clips, probably way too much, like a couple minutes of him practicing on the cat wheel. It's very exciting. The other thing is that I had a dental checkup this week, and everything was great. Everything was very good. So I, end of last year, had a bad crown removed and had a bone graft and a bunch of stuff done. So that's all healing up well. So what that means is I got a bunch of referrals to orthodontists. So I have needed some correction on my teeth are overcrowded, and had talked to my dentist about it years ago, but it was like, you're gonna have to get something pulled. Well, now I've had something pulled and I have room in there to actually do something. So now I'm starting the search of orthodontists to try to do that before I get an implant. So who knows what that's gonna look like, or if I'm even going to decide, because last time around it was like, my dentist kind of said, well, you're not bad enough that you have to do anything, like it's gonna do terrible damage, but it's gonna be a lot to look into. So that's gonna be a headache and a half upcoming. So I think that's it for my week. I tried to keep it rapid this week because the light is barely there. We're in a break between storms. So yeah, recommendations this week. I have Victoria Helen Stone was interviewed by Murder by the Book. Great bookshop that specializes in like mystery thriller, and she has a new book coming out, which I'm very interested in. But I loved her from her past book, Jane Doe. Jane Doe is a book all about a woman who is a sociopath. And it's such a great perspective. Number one, so unique, but number two, it's kind of a Dexter scenario where like you can get behind as a reader and empathize what she's doing. Yeah, so highly recommend that one. Check it out without looking into it too much. Then we had Lucy and Scott from Bookshanks. Did a great video called Highlight or Bullshit. And Lucy wrote some quotes herself and then put those up against some quotes from literary fiction books and had Scott guess whether they were highlight or bullshit. And it was such a fun premise, and I did not get hardly any of them. I think Scott got more than I did, but a really, really fun video. And then my last one is Arne and Carlos, who are knitting tubers, not booktubers. I don't know whether there's like I'm sure there is a community for like fiber arts, but regardless, Arne and Carlos are Norwegian traditional knitters, and they took a hurtigruten, which as I understand it is like a Norwegian coastal cruise. And so they filmed clips all through their travels there. It's so fun, so relaxing, really enjoyed it. So it's not about knitting at all. They do mention knitting, but it's just this travel vlog basically. Really fun, enjoyed it so much. So that is it for my week, I think. Yeah, I hope everybody else is having a good week. It's been another heavy week in the world. Hopefully everyone is maintaining their mental health and stability and giving yourself some time and breaks away from doom scrolling, please. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the massive clips. Hey, what are you doing, Coco? Doing a small explore? Just a little bit of exploring. I got some fern hanging plants and they are absolutely thriving. Ripley is a vibe today. I know, I feel it too, Rip. Yep. So it is about 11 a.m. It just got very dark and very windy, and we're about to get some storms here. They were literally just out cutting grass, so hopefully the guys got all picked up and inside. I think south of me, my coworkers have it even worse. It's just starting here. They said it's pouring down rain. Everyone is pretty unhappy that we're stuck in the basement thanks to a tornado warning. The sirens are going off. I'm sure you guys can't hear it though. From here it's pretty quiet. They're waiting so patiently for it to end. You guys are so good.
Very dangerous situation currently in Metro St. Louis. Tornado warnings.
Turn around, do not drown. Those cars who are at a standstill are doing the right thing and just staying there. But yeah, there's cars. You can see that semi trying to go through the water. This is pretty dramatic right now. So this has gotten the whole highway, both north and south, at a standstill, and we'll be following this for more updates. But I'll send it back to you, Glenn, and this is the look at that right now.
I don't know if you can tell, but our dove outside had babies. I'm guessing they maybe got knocked out with the storm. They're little guys. She's feeding them both at the same time. What a good mama bird. Very first peony of the year is blooming, and as usual it's covered in ants. It's Saturday morning and it just never even got light today. So it's actually lighter on video than it is in person. Boom. You did it. Good job, buddy. You're on the wheel. Good job, bud. Did you figure it out? Yeah, you figured out how to use the wheel. Good job, bud. What? You are too speedy. Are you trying to get to the top of it? Is that what's going on here? Yeah, what? What is it? Rue. Oh, you're so funny. Oh my God, Rue. This is amazing. Buddy, the wild ride. Oh no. Good job, bud. Good job. You're doing so well, buddy. You're doing really, really good. What a good boy. You got a nice stride going there? That's really nice. Good boy, Rue. Yeah, good boy. Good job, buddy.